Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Tuesday Talks. Today we're going to cover some key financial topics, but will not cover all CACFP financial requirements. At the end of the presentation, there are slides that point out where you can find additional information and resources that your program can access later. Today's webinar will specifically focus on maintaining receipts and documenting costs on a ledger or other tracking system. It is applicable to all organizations that participate in the CACFP except for family daycare home sponsors and family daycare home providers. Throughout this presentation, you will see a website links and on some of the slides. You can access the links on the handout that is posted on the Tuesday Talks webpage. Okay, let's get started. Today we want you to walk away with knowing these important points. Number one, what are the acceptable and unacceptable receipts to support CACFP expenses? Number two, how to identify CACFP costs on receipts. Number three, how to track CACFP costs from receipts to a general ledger. And number four, the required payroll documentation for CACFP paid staff. All CACFP financial management information and resources can be found under Guidance Memorandum 11. Now, let's go through these points in more detail. Your agency must maintain receipts and invoices for CACFP food and non-food expenses. Keep receipts on file in an organized manner and in a location accessible to DPI staff. Even if you have an outside accountant who you send your receipts to, be sure you retain a copy of any documentation you send to your accountant so it is accessible to DPI staff. Now, let's talk about what an acceptable receipt is. Receipts or invoices must be legible and contain the following: the date of purchase, itemized list of all items, the cost of the items, and the name of the vendor, supplier, store in which these items were purchased, and the method of payment that was used. Also, you must make CACFP purchases with an acceptable method of payment. Acceptable methods of payment are a debit card assigned to the business checking account, a credit card that is in the business's name, or a check made payable to a store, vendor, or an employee from the business checking account. Unacceptable methods of payment are cash. Only the use of a petty cash account is acceptable, which should retain less than $100 and be reconciled monthly. It is also unacceptable to use your WIC or food share benefits. Individuals who purchase food and supplies in this manner will be reported to the WIC or food share administering agency for improper use. This receipt is an example of an unacceptable receipt for the CACFP. The receipt does not contain a date of purchase, the name of the store, vendor where items were purchased, or the method of payment. Here is an example of another type of unacceptable receipt. It is becoming more common, especially within the last 12 months, to do your online ordering. The picture on the side on this slide is of an online order form for food supplies. This is not a receipt. The receipt would be the electronic or paper receipt that you receive after you pick up the items at the store, which shows the actual items that were purchased and not ordered and the amount that was actually charged. Sometimes what you ordered is not what you picked up due to substitutions being made by the store or out of stock items that were not received. Now that you know what an acceptable receipt must include, let's discuss the next step of identifying costs into different categories. To do that, let's briefly discuss different costs on receipts. The following expenses are allowable CACFP costs, and you may use your CACFP reimbursement to pay for these items. CACFP food costs include credible foods, the purchase of meals from a vendor, condiments, spices, and ingredients used in your CACFP meals and recipes. CACFP non-food or kitchen supplies include items primarily used for CACFP food service, such as paper goods, cleaning supplies, kitchen utensils, and dishes. Also, if you use a food supplier such as Cisco or US Foods, the delivery surcharge that is charged on your receipt is an allowable food cost. There also may be costs on receipts that are unallowable non-CACFP costs, including personal items or center supplies, non-credible foods such as coffee, ice cream, or grain-based desserts, food purchased for use outside of a CACFP meal, such as for a party or open house or for a staff meeting. Meals served to adults not working with the operation of the CACFP is also not allowable, and tax charged if you are a nonprofit agency. These items cannot be paid with your CACFP reimbursement, and other program income must pay for these costs. If receipts include CACFP food, non-food kitchen supplies, and/or other non-CACFP costs, you must identify these items on the receipts and invoices. For example, an F equals food, an NF would be non-food or kitchen supplies, and indicating UA would be unallowable cost. If most of the items on a receipt are food costs, you do not need to identify those items with an F, but you do need to identify the other items, such as kitchen supplies with an NF or non-food, and/or the unallowable costs with UA. See the receipt on the slide as an example. The next step is to add up each type of cost category, food, non-food, and your unallowable costs, and record the totals on the receipt or invoice. One suggestion to make this process easier is to run multiple transactions and pay for each group separately or subtotal after each group of items. For example, place all of your CACFP food items first and then receive a subtotal, then kitchen supplies, and then again ask for a subtotal, and then any non-CACFP items. This way, you can see the subtotals on the receipt and you do not have to mark them on the receipt and total up the categories. Next, agencies must track CACFP cost with an accounting system such as QuickBooks or by using the CACFP General Ledger found under Guidance Memorandum 11. The CACFP General Ledger is shown on this slide. It tracks expenses by month for the CACFP program year, which runs from October to September. There are two versions available under Guidance Memorandum 11. One is for independent centers, where you only have one site on the program, and one is for sponsoring organizations, organizations that have two or more sites on the program. If using the CACFP General Ledger, don't forget to download it and save it to your computer to complete. Whichever General Ledger system you use, it must track, at a minimum, the date of the purchase, the method of payment, the name of the payee, which would be your store or vendor, the total cost spent, and the total costs separated into the food and non-food or kitchen supplies. The ledger must always be accessible and kept on file with the source documents, which would be your receipts and payroll information, which are, and your invoices. Let's go through an example of tracking food program costs on the CACFP General Ledger. The costs on this receipt are food and non-food. This is what you will track on the General Ledger. First, record the date of purchase, method of payment, and the payee. In the next column, record the total amount of the receipt. In this example, the total amount of the receipt is $50.68. In the next column, record the total food cost. In this example, the total food cost is $22.53. In the next column, record the total non-food kitchen supply costs. In this example, the total kitchen supply cost was $4.98. As you enter receipts in the CACFP General Ledger, it will add up your monthly food program expenses and will provide a summary to use when completing the CACFP financial reports. In addition to retaining documentation that supports the CACFP food and kitchen supplies, documentation must be on file for staff paid with CACFP funds. For employees who only perform CACFP tasks, such as your cooks or food service employees, payroll records showing how much the employee was paid must be on file. For employees who are not 100% CACFP, for example, if you have a cook who also helps in a classroom, payroll records must be on file as well as a daily timesheet showing the employee's time spent on CACFP tasks. The daily time log shown on this slide may be used. It is found under Guidance Memorandum 11. Now, this is the end of the presentation portion of the webinar. For guidance and additional resources to help with your CACFP financial management, please go to Guidance Memorandum number 11. There's also more information in the financial management lesson in the CACFP e-learning course. The link to access the e-learning course is on the slide. If you have questions about CACFP financial management, please reach out to me. My email address is on this slide. You can also reach out to your agency's consultant at the Consultants by County link on this slide.